Welcome to Healthy Frontiers. My name is Dr. Bizzoni. I'm a chiropractor, and the show is dedicated to the education of our viewers. The topic for tonight is New Frontiers in Learning, and my special guest is Dan Koffler. Dan is the founder and the executive director of the program. Dan, I want to welcome you to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Dan, I'm going to let you tell the audience about yourself a bit. So,
sure.
Go ahead.
So, I'm born and bred New Yorker. I live in Manhattan with my 3 children and wife. I've been in the education field my entire life. My family has been building and operating private schools for 30 plus years. And my mother's a speech therapist by training.
Okay.
My father was a keen observer and supporter of her work early on, and started asking, how do you take this small practice you have and grow it into something more substantial?
Yes.
And they quickly realized that if they combine the clinical and academic components into a school setting for young children, 3 to 5-year-olds, they can receive funding from the state. And that turned into a program called Sunshine Developmental School, which still exists today in Jamaica, Queens. It's a fabulous program, 600 students and 200 staff every day coming in and out.
Wow.
That experience, cutting through about 20 years of effort,
Sure.
led my father to the idea that if we take this expertise in early childhood and in special education and move to the city, to Manhattan,
Sure.
where there's more resources, people can afford to pay for just higher quality programming, bring on higher level staff, just do more and better.
More. Sure.
And that turned into a long run of opening private schools from early childhood, special education, K-12, general ed, special ed, etc., across the city, different brands that gave us a lot of exposure and expertise to the different needs in the market, which led us to New Frontiers.
Great, great. So that's how you got into the field.
Yeah.
How did you decide to begin New Frontiers in Learning altogether?
Yeah, so I was mentioning earlier, so one of the schools we had started and managed for a number of years was called the Aaron School, and it still exists in Manhattan today. It started as an elementary school, and we grew it over the years through middle and high school. And when the high school started to stand on its own 2 legs, families started coming to us and saying, we appreciate this supportive environment you've created for us. So it's a program, it's a K-12 college prep program for students with learning disabilities.
Right.
But what happens when we go to college? Right. The supports aren't necessarily available to us the same way they are in high school.
Sure.
The system that is an entitlement system in high school changes to one where you have to be a self-advocate in college.
Sure.
From a funding perspective, from a support perspective, from just simply being 18 or however old you are when you go to college and just being on your own for the first time.
Sure.
And a lot of the students coming from supportive environments or other environments are going to struggle with that transition. So my co-founder and I, Samantha Feynman, got together and started talking about, well, what can we do to create supports for this population on an individualized basis? Because individuals learn differently from one another.
Right.
And that became the impetus for New Frontiers in Learning.
Wow, that's great. So what services do you actually provide?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, broadly speaking, academic and social supports for students with a variety of learning differences. Executive functioning and transition supports are the foundation of all the work we do.
Okay.
So we see students on a repetitive basis coming out of high school, transitioning into college, lacking certain skills.
Right.
A lot of times organizational skills, self-advocacy skills, and that's because by the nature of how the system works right now, those aren't necessarily hammered in at high school.
Sure.
High school is about getting out of high school, right? It's a means to an end, but getting into college. And then college is where you really, I think, in my opinion, learn how to be an adult.
Yes.
It's where you find yourself socially as well as academically.
Right.
So we work with students on an individual basis, 1 to 5 hours a week typically, developing strategies and skills to help them succeed on their own path.
Right.
So what that looks like is different from student to student. We have students who are on the spectrum. We have students who have no diagnosis necessarily, but they struggle in a large setting or in the current supports they're receiving or not receiving.
Right.
So we work with them to develop a plan that works for their individual learning style. And really it's about creating a path for them to walk on. They're actually figuring out the solutions and the steps that are going to work for them. We're just facilitating that conversation.
Right. So just is it the parent that seeks you out for their child usually, or is it the child or the adult now in college is seeking you out? What do you find?
So just we see students from as young as middle school, all the way through beyond college.
Okay.
So as they get older, in some cases, yes, the students are seeking us out. In most cases, they're coming to us as a function of being pushed by somebody, suggested by somebody in the accommodations office at college, or their guidance counselor, or some other consultant or clinician who they work with.
Right.
Very rarely are they calling us on their own.
Right.
But generally speaking, the referral source network is the neuropsychologists, the ed consultants, the college counselors, the disability support officers on college campuses.
Right.
The folks who are really on the front lines of working with these students and providing them accommodations and supports are the ones who are calling us and saying, listen, we have a student here who needs more than we can do.
Right.
What can you do?
You are.
Right.
Great. So where do you do these services? Where do you provide the services?
Sure. So our main office is in Manhattan, in Lower Manhattan.
Okay.
We have been operating in Westchester and in Manhattan, which real Manhattan speaks for the whole 5 boroughs, really,
Yes.
for 4 years. That's as long as the program's been in existence.
Yes.
We have an office in Long Island, as well as we've just begun to expand to northern New Jersey and southern Connecticut. So where we have centers, so Long Island and New York City, we tend to provide services on site at our center. It provides a very distraction-reduced environment. We have a lot of support staff around to help support the students when they're not in session. So students can come to us before or after their session and just work quietly at their own pace.
Right.
I know there's an adult professional there around to help them with a question if they have a question.
Right.
In the cases of Long Island or Jersey or Connecticut or other places, Westchester, where we are expanding our presence,
Yes.
we will go to the college campus, we'll go to the home, we'll go to the school, Starbucks, whatever is most convenient for the individual and the most distraction reduced, wherever those two intersect.
Right. So if they come to the school, just is it more like a classroom setting or is it a non-classroom
We'll
setting?
try to find a quiet setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's a high school student, we're not going to necessarily work on campus at the
Right.
school. We're going to find somewhere near the school that works, but during like a free period.
Right.
For the college students, we tend to work more collaboratively with the university, with their
Right.
accommodations office, and they'll provide us some space to work in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily coming to another school.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have staff, and I know a
Yes.
large staff. What's the most important thing when it comes to selecting the staff?
Culture.
Yeah.
The culture that we've designed for the organization, I'd like to think is kind of a function of who I am, which is that, in essence, we take the work we do very seriously, because it's very serious work. We view ourselves as changing people's lives. We don't take ourselves super seriously, though, so we have a fairly young team, considering the amount of expertise they bring to the table.
Right.
Our coordinators, who are the mid-level managers who oversee each territory we operate in, with the exception of one, all come from a special education background. They're master's level certified teachers who have worked in high school or post-secondary environments or wilderness programs or other related environments.
Right.
Our coaches, who are the ones providing the majority of the direct service, come from a variety of backgrounds, an even broader swatch. We have a number of PhD candidates in psychology. We have social workers. We have special educators. We have some folks with no formal training in education, which is really interesting. They happen to be some of our best coaches.
Yeah.
It's about, do you have, I think with Google, firms like that look for this kind of thing. It's, do you have it? In
Yes.
And it's an empathy, it's a patience, it's an ability to work with a population that can be challenging, and be able to meet them where they are. Zero judgment. It's about helping them work through finding their success. Because what we know from the assessment we do with our students that they all have the ability to be successful academically.
Right.
They're all average to above average cognitively. They all have to want the supports.
Right.
So finding that match between the coach and the student is probably the most critical piece, and that speaks to the culture we have organized and who the coaches are.
Right. Perfect. Okay. So where do you get most of your referrals from?
Student referrals?
Yeah.
We've been out doing this for 4 years. I spend a lot of my time out in the field meeting people. The work we do is a little more nuanced.
Right.
So I have a lot of friends who ask, what do I do? And I just leave it like it's basically tutoring.
Yeah.
It's just not really, they're not going to really understand it. They're not in the field.
Right.
It's much more than tutoring. We do core content tutoring, but mentorship and coaching is really the broader conversation. So the students come from, as I was mentioning earlier, school psychologists, neuropsychologists, ed consultants who are responsible for helping students figure out their educational path or the college they're going to go to, college administrators, disability support officers, clinicians of all shapes and sizes, mental health professionals, drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities.
Right.
All these different avenues present students who are struggling in some way to get back on a straight academic path and transition from whatever environment they're coming out of into what we're going to be going into, speaks to our approach.
Yeah.
So it's a broad swatch, and it's really about individual relationships that our team has with the professionals out there, and proving ourselves every single day to give them comfort. Because when they refer somebody to us, they're putting their name on it.
Yeah.
It's critical to us that we don't embarrass them,
Yeah.
let them down. And likewise, when we make a referral, we have the same exact perspective. We want to make sure that our name is maintained in doing that.
Sure. Okay. So what types of students do you work with, basically?
Oh, a whole broad swatch, really.
ahead.
You know, when the program was originally founded, it was really students on the spectrum in a post-secondary environment. we quickly realized that was very limiting. Our approach can work with, because it's individual, we can have a student at 10 in the morning who looks a certain way, presents a certain way.
Right.
At 11 o'clock, the profile is different from 12 o'clock. So it really is about anybody who learns differently, who can appreciate and gain from individualized supports, which you're talking about 85% of the population,
Yeah,
I think,
sure.
when you talk about it that way, can be a student of ours. We tend to work more closely with the special education population,
Right.
because I think they have a better appreciation
Right.
for what the students are going to need going into college or whatever transition point they're going to.
Right.
They appreciate that. They tend to appreciate that more. But we'll work with anybody who wants to work with us, who we can work with.
Right. Great. So what does a typical coaching session look like?
So they're generally an hour long, and it's different from coach to coach. So we do a broad orientation for all of our coaches coming in. It's part of our professional development program. So we don't assume, regardless of where they're coming from, that they know the tenets of what transition really means, what executive functioning looks like, and what it means. We go through that in pretty good detail so that everyone's on the same page. But then personality dictates. Like any organization, this is like a mini organization, each coaching session. So it starts off with like a mindfulness check-in, essentially. Have you drank enough water today? Have you eaten enough? Have you slept? Is there anything that needs to be discussed that is outside the bounds of the work we have to do today? When it's an ongoing relationship, when the student's been with us for some period of time, they generally jump into whatever they were covering from the last session, checking in on each of their classes. We keep a pretty organized, like organization is a big deal for us.
Yes.
So we keep a pretty well-organized binder, both digitally and in paper for the students, or whatever really works for them. It's about what systems work for them.
Right.
We'll go through that, see where they are with their assignments, see if they need any kind of clarification on where they have to be. We'll help them draft emails to their professors if they need to. We'll communicate with parents or clinicians.
Right.
For a newer student, we're going to go through, well, where are you struggling? Really, you have to let us know what you are struggling with, and how can we then take that experience based on our own personal experiences as learners and the experience broadly as an organization, what we've seen across different students, how can we set up a system for you that's going to work to make you most successful? So on one day it can be we have to work on an English paper.
Yes.
The next day it can be studying for a math test.
Right.
It depends on what the course work is that's coming up down the pike.
So you actually teach them better methods of study.
Exactly
I mean,
right.
That's part of.
It's about scaffolding, so creating systems that allow them to create systems for themselves that they can then work with, not just in school, but also generalize in the real world.
Yeah.
Because what we tend to find is that the social piece is really what hampers the academics. The academics is kind of like the numerical manifestation of it.
Yes.
So the social piece is really, it's critical. It's great that they can get the work done and be successful in college and feel that confidence and know that they can do it, because we know that they can before they know they can necessarily.
Yes.
But can they generalize that in the workforce?
Right.
This is, again, college is a means to an end as well. It's a means to the end being joining the independent society and be a truly independent, self-advocating person. That's what we're looking to do. And we build on that very slowly. Some students can work with us for 6 months and off they go. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
Some students will be with us for indefinite periods of time. And there's no wrong answer to it.
Yeah.
It's about what is best for that individual.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had. How, do you have to commit to a certain amount of time, or so you're getting your point to them and helping them, or can they come in as like 1 hour a week, 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week if they need it or want? And how does that work?
So we originally started off with signing up for the year,
Right.
and then we broke it down by semester.
Right.
And now we've broken it down by those options still exist for people who know they want to spend that much time with us.
Right.
We have blocks of time, so they can sign up for 10, 20, or 30 hours of time. Some students will use 10 hours in a week.
Right.
Some will use it over 4 weeks.
Got it.
It's about being the most flexible we can be for them to meet their needs.
And who makes the decision when you're done? Is it them or you?
It's a collaborative
combo?
conversation, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's financially driven.
Right.
Sometimes it's progress driven.
Right.
We certainly are focused on the progress piece. For us, we're running a business,
Yes.
sure, but it's a very much a social entrepreneurship business. We're very much geared towards seeing successful outcomes for students. If we can't help them along that path, then we're not going to be in business very long.
Got it.
Right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
So we have students who start with us for 4 hours a week,
Yep.
and then we'll notice that they don't need 4 hours anymore.
Right.
We will suggest, listen, you don't need this anymore. Save the money and spend that time doing something that you enjoy more, right?
Right.
2 hours is fine.
Right.
You have that. You actually have learned, without even recognizing it, you've learned the systems that you've created for yourself, and it's
Yeah.
phenomenal to see that.
Yeah. Do they test at all? I mean, do you have tests or, I mean...
Informal
Informal tests.
assessments. So when a
Yes.
student first comes to us, Samantha, who I referenced earlier, our director, is really the bottleneck in a good way for quality control.
Right.
So she's going to see all of our students, the incoming students. She's also going to see the incoming staff members coming in. So they understand what they should be expecting on both ends of that relationship. And then they get dispersed, if you will, to the respective coordinator in the area they're going to be working in.
Right.
That's their direct supervisor. So that's who they end up reporting to, and that's who's going to end up training them and overseeing their work.
All right, great. Okay, so what types of skills does the organization work with? You know?
It's the gamut. I
Gamut.
mean,
One's the gamut.
if I were to sit here and list every single one of them, we would run out of time really quickly.
Got it.
It's really the gamut. It's whatever the needs of the student are. We're not going to take on a student who we can't help or who
Right.
doesn't want the help.
Right.
You don't have to wake up in the morning and be jumping out of bed. Yes, I'm going to New Frontiers today. But you do have to be an adult about it. You have to meet us halfway. And if you're not going to show up one day, you have to call us and let us know. As you would in work or anywhere else where you have to mature responsibilities.
Right.
So that's what we expect and really demand from our students. We expect respect and we give respect very much so.
Right.
So that's kind of how we look at that.
Okay. So what type of progress do you see in the students?
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, the world we live in is very quantitative. So people want to see, like, how's your GPA? You know, what schools are you going to? How did the school rank? That's fine, and we appreciate that, and we pay respect to that. We focus on GPA as well, and we're looking to see progress in that regard. But really the qualitative stuff is what I, at least personally, am more interested in. When I hear from a family, we don't solicit testimonials from families. Right. We appreciate them, and they come once in a while. And I remember seeing a couple in the last couple of weeks, and I was thinking, these are outlandish. They're so positive. No one's going to believe that this is really like a third party wrote this. But they really do. They really write this. They really feel as if, and so do we, that their lives have changed. The dynamic in their household has changed. The relationship amongst siblings and amongst the student and parents and the student and work colleagues has changed to such a point that it's a different person.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from having the confidence that they've gained from working with us, figuring out what we already knew they could do. It's just having someone kind of walk them down the path that is specific to them.
Right.
So the change is major. We've had valedictorians. We've had numerous college graduates. We go to the graduations. You know, it's a big deal for us. We celebrate that. We have a social network that's created, informally in our office by students coming to us from all different parts of the city.
Yes.
And like the greater super region around the city.
Yep.
So we see that social dynamic changing. Boyfriends and girlfriends have been created through our network.
Yeah.
Lasting friendships. That would never have happened because most of the students that we work with have difficulty initiating socially.
Yes.
So that's a big deal for us.
Biggie.
And we use that also with the learning experiences from that. We had a case a couple years ago where a student was late for a session, didn't show up, didn't call or nothing. And eventually we got nervous and we called. We said, well, what's going on?
Right.
I was out until 4 a.m. last night with a couple of guys who I met in the program. And we was like, well, that's interesting. How do we handle that? Do we applaud that and say, congratulations, you've taken the step that every other student your age takes, and you're going out, you're being a little irresponsible, but you're going out, you're making friends, you're having fun.
Right.
Or do we scold the lack of responsibility for not calling ahead?
Sure.
And it was like, don't do it again.
Yeah, right.
And it was great, but it was great. For us,
Yes.
Long-term, terrific learning experience for us as an organization and phenomenal for the student.
For
Much
sure.
more
Social.
important than
Forget it.
that math test, necessarily. Right? Not that we don't take that seriously, but in the bigger scheme, that's the more important part.
Very important. Sure. Okay, so what's been the most rewarding aspect of the work to date for you?
I would say the team. The organization that we've created, we have at this point 30-plus coaches and full-time staff.
Nice.
The coaches are ranging from 2 hours a week to 30 hours a week. So there's a range of hours, and that's a function of their schedule, their desire, and the fit with the students.
Right.
Having this network, I've worked in a family business my whole professional career, which is fabulous. I've been exposed to things that I would not have been exposed to otherwise, but it's always like it's work. Like, we're working 24/7.
Sure.
In this case, I have staff that take the initiative to organize. We go out for drinks. We go sports. We do sporting activities. We do like 5Ks, charity things. It's just the nature of the work we do allows for that. We're in close quarters a lot, and we're a lot of collaboration. It's nice to have that outside of the office dynamic.
Sure.
That, to me, it's not it's not such a big deal for a lot of people. A lot of people have that in their work.
Right.
I never did.
Right.
So for me, that's the most rewarding thing. People enjoy being there, and it's something that my name's at the top.
Yeah.
I have responsibility for that. That, to me, is I'm always impressed by, surprised, I should say, that something that I had a hand in creating still exists, has grown, and people are coming to us now through avenues that I didn't create. So I've created a lot of these avenues, but as a function, like there's like tributaries that come off of them, and they're coming to us through a third party.
Yeah.
Which means that people out there don't need me to knock on their door and say like, we exist.
Yep.
They're going out and spreading the gospel themselves because they believe in us.
Great.
That to me is a major, major accomplishment.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
Sure. So what are the long-term goals for the program?
I'd like to see it go national and international. So right now we are very, very quality control oriented.
Right.
If I had my way, we would be in every major city in the country already. What we would look like in those cities, I don't know. But I would just say that we're a national brand.
Yeah.
My staff, who are all much smarter than me, thank goodness, have, on a lot of levels, but in particular on this business level, which they all preach they have no experience on, they were like, what are you going to be promoting? Like, what are we doing? We don't have the ability to train people in those areas and to oversee their work. How are we going to do this properly? We'll destroy the brand before we even start it. They were right, of course, which is why we only operate currently like in that super region around the city.
Right.
I can drive everywhere we have to go. Our staff can get to these places. We can see them on, with regularity for staff meetings, in-person meetings.
Right.
That collaboration is critical for us as we really work through. And we're as soon as we figure out a problem or a solution to an issue, we add a new vertical, a new program, or a new aspect to things. So we're always expanding the foundation of what we do, as well as the quality of how we do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't know if you mentioned, but I know we spoke about it, that the program is not only having to go to a place, but it's online as well.
That's right.
That's right.
So there's some students who we can't physically get to.
Right.
Either we've worked with them in the past and they moved to a different university, or they moved to a different home, or et cetera.
Right.
Or for some learners, they're able to initiate and get their work. They're organized enough to do their work without us in front of them.
Physically, yeah.
But they still do need some type of a check-in, and usually mom and dad aren't the people to be managing that relationship. So we'll see them online via Skype. We'll check in with them. We see about a half a dozen students that way, maybe more. As we grow, that percentage increases.
Right.
So, but it's a particular type of learner. They have to be able. We really want to know their social cues, so we can see. Like for instance, I would not be able to learn that way.
Right.
I would have benefited from New Frontiers greatly as a student.
Right.
Too bad I didn't exist. I can't exist at the same time.
Yeah.
But some students are able to do it. And again, it's in most cases, it's students we've worked with in the past on some level in person, and they're ready for that level of interaction.
Got it. Or it could be a combination.
100%, for sure. It's case by case.
And what are the biggest challenges you guys see?
Finding quality and qualified staff. So there's great people out there, but to find great people who match our culture, you're starting to narrow in a little bit. We've gotten better at it as we've gotten better at what we do, and we found some good people who then tell their friends and their colleagues and their cohorts at school, et cetera, this is a great program, you should check this out. But it's a struggle when you don't know the environment, the neighborhood. So like New Jersey or Connecticut, for example, those are new areas for us.
Yes.
And as we meet new people and sort of dig deeper into the fabric of the communities, we start to find better people, but it takes a lot of conversation to have that happen. I don't know of a more efficient, I know this is not the most efficient way at all, but I don't know of a more efficient way to do it to make sure that I can really be proud of the people who we're bringing on. Because the training we go through is intensive.
Right.
And it's not worth our time or our resources to spend that time training somebody who's not going to stick with it.
Right.
And we've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, for sure.
Finding students is always a challenge relatively, because I always want to have more students we can support. But we seem to have done a decent job putting the word out there that we are professionals, we take this deadly seriously, and that you can trust, people trust us. And now parents, certainly word of mouth is a big referral source for us.
Sure.
But the professionals we work with, we take it, like I mentioned earlier, really seriously, their reputation. We're not going to work with a student we can't work with.
Right.
So they at this point have a level of comfort sending students to us. But the challenge is it's always staff and students.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. If someone, their child is diagnosed with ADHD or so, or a medical condition, is that something you will then contact the medical doctor, work in harmony with the physicians and all, or how does that work?
We have to collaborate.
Yeah.
I don't know that everybody views it that way. We as an organization, me personally and our organization view it that way 100%.
Right.
We are not a therapeutic program.
Right.
So that's an important line to draw in the sand. We focus on academic skills development.
Right.
A lot of the students we work with have mental health components to their caseload. So there's a clinician somewhere in the background, at least from our perspective, that's working with them, or in many cases has referred the student to us, we have to collaborate with them.
Yeah.
When I mentioned our mindfulness exercise earlier, part of that can sometimes delve into, so anything else you want to share can delve into things that go down a clinical path.
Right.
And we appreciate that they're comfortable sharing that with us, but it's really not our territory to step on. We suggest, listen, speak to your clinician about that kind of stuff, and if you're okay with it, we'd like to contact them as well.
Right.
And let them know this came up in session, but we have to get this work done over here.
Right.
So, but I mean, parents are part of the equation. We are a support program. We are not replacing anyone's parents. We are not providing medication. We are not providing any of these things that may be really important parts of the dynamic. Right. So it's 100% critical for us. And again, we are really good at what we do. Mm-hmm. We don't need to kind of tread on other people's territory.
Right.
People who have gone to school and mastered these skills, I'd much rather them do that. I'd much rather them focus on it and work collaboratively with us so we can make sure that the student is successful.
The last moment or so, Dan, why don't you just say, I noticed on your website, which is great, by the way.
Thank you.
It said, it takes a village to get this done.
Oh, for sure.
What does that mean?
So you have clinicians, you have mom and dad, you have the students, you have the siblings, you have their friends, you have the outside world that we can't control. All these factors play a role in an individual's success.
Right.
We don't profess to know all the answers. Mm-hmm. We have an approach to finding a path. We need everybody involved. When they leave our doors, there's somebody else who they're going to be working with or responsible to or for. We need all those people involved in the conversation to whatever extent that they will allow us in the conversation. Most people are very accommodating in this field in general. They want to collaborate, but we don't presume to know all the answers by any stretch of the imagination. We want as much feedback as we can get from the team, whatever it looks like.
That's great. Dan, I want to thank you for being on the show.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
That was terrific.
Thank you so much.
That's New Frontiers in Learning. Dan Koffler, founder, executive director. Thank you for being so attentive, and we'll see you on the next show.